Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I am your co-host, Devin Klein, with my co-host over here, Morgan Klein, as you know, our CEO. And we have a special guest today, everybody.
Woohoo.
LP. All right, Lauren, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Super excited to be here. I am a little bit nervous, but I am excited to talk to you guys and be able to just be here.
We're going to share a lot about your story today.
Yep.
And so everybody listening in, Lauren has an incredible story. She started back when No Mercy Morgan was a trainer in Cornelius,
back in the day,
North Carolina, and has really just climbed the ranks here at Burn Bootcamp and has an incredible personal story motivating her that goes pretty deep. So stick around for that. We're going to let her loose and let her tell you all of the things. MK, how you feeling?
Doing good.
Good.
Yeah, middle of September. I'm excited for today's episode, LP. I'm excited you're here to share your powerful story, as Devin mentioned. And we got some exciting things happening in Burn Nation, some great transformation stories we're going to share with you, some good questions, and some funny topics. So I'm excited.
Yes. Listen, so we opened a new location, you guys, and we're going to talk about that real quick. And I think this is a buddy of mine, Shannon. We've known each other for a very long time. Shannon Lamondola, Tommy
She's
Lamondola.
also an OG.
She's an OG. She's like one of our
while.
very first members and back in the parking lot days. So she just opened location number 411 in Orchard Park, New York. And I thought it might be fun to see if I can FaceTime her real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get her on FaceTime here during the podcast, but they're continuing to grow their amazing community in New York with the addition of this Orchard Park location. This is their third one. They have Pittsford, New York and Webster, New York as well. And when she opened, I FaceTimed her and got a chance to see inside of the opening. And LP, you know, you're at HQ, you get to see locations opening, franchise partners reinvesting into the business model and continuing to grow. What's it mean to you to just watch somebody like Shannon Lamondola, who has been here, you know, right around the time that you joined, maybe a little bit sooner even, because she was in the parking lot days. I'll tell you a story about her in a minute, but what's it mean to you, you know, being at HQ, caring so much about the growth of our system, to see somebody who is doing it and doing it again and doing it again and being successful?
Yeah, it's super exciting. I mean, like, you know, I love being able to see franchise partners open 1, 2, 3, 4 locations, and especially for Shannon, she's just such an amazing, you know, person and like just such a light in the community. And to see her have 2 successful gyms and then open up that third one in New York, it's really exciting to be able to see it. So.
Of course, she's not answering me right now.
Hey, maybe she's at camp.
That's
Who
what I was
knows?
about
Of course,
to say.
she's not answering.
She's like, you know what? We should really test and see if I call her if she answers.
You should. You should. I think she'll FaceTime me back at some point here, and I'll answer when she does, and we'll bring her live to you guys. But did we show the graphic? I want to show the graphic one more time of Shannon and Tommy, because these people are amazing human beings. Location number 411, just helping so many people in the state of New York and upstate New York live the Burn Bootcamp lifestyle and maximize their health and happiness. So shout out to the Dolas, as we call them, around HQ. And if you guys are interested in franchising out there, let us know. Go to our website, franchise.burnbootcamp.com. We'll link that in the show notes, okay? And you guys can hit the FranDev link up and let us know. We're looking for particular people that are hungry, ambitious, have a great attitude, want to grow, and want to be on Team Blue. So exciting. Orchard Park, 411. Morg, we have a burn story today.
We do. This one is super powerful. It comes from Clarksville, Tennessee. And this one went pretty viral because, and I think you guys will see in just a moment just how impactful this story is and just the energy you can feel. Her name is Mercedes Johnson. And so we'll go ahead and roll to that video right now.
Hi, my name is Mercedes, and I'm a member of Burn Bootcamp Clarksville. My journey with Burn Bootcamp started in February 2024. I weighed in 596 pounds, like lifted me in my sleep apnea very bad. I couldn't sleep in a bed. I'd lay on my knees in a prayer position and just lay on the side of my bed.
Okay.
Sleeping on my back, I would choke to death. Moments that I knew I was sleeping, like moments that I would eat or moments that I would like be at home and couldn't move, that I knew that like I might not wake up. Boot camp is so special to me because it's one of the only things that I've done consistently. In any journey, you need support. You can't do it by yourself. That's the reason why Burns is like so special to me. In total, I've lost 183 pounds. 100 pounds before I came to burn, 83 pounds since being at work. Biggest victory that I found has been just my quality of life, being able to walk long periods of time, being able to fly. I'm able to jump rope, which has really helped with my rheumatic problem. Blood pressure's not an issue, being able to sleep in my bed the whole night, just not being afraid to lift myself, feeding myself, with other people sleeping behind me.
Wow, what an incredible story. So Morgan, you said that went viral in Burn Nation. Where did you see it first?
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram. I think I was tagged in it as well. We're tagged in a lot of different transformation stories, but I just remember so much of Burn Nation showed up in those comments and just was, praising Mercedes and all the work that she's done and sharing that so other people can see, what is possible for them if you find that community. I love how she talked about can't do this alone. And we're going to talk about that a lot today in the podcast, that connect and that community that Burn Boot Camp brings. But I love the journey that she's been on, and she's not done. She's going to continue that journey, and it's going to continue to have both internal and external impacts on her life as she, gets healthier.
And LP, we're going to talk about your story and dive deep as we promised everybody. But, as a prelude to that, how does this make you feel as you see Mercedes, hear her story? I clearly see the emotion that comes over her as she talks about consistency and things like that. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I just think it's so important, like the community, right? Like being able to see other people and their transformation stories, it just touches me every single time. Like I've watched Mercedes' video probably 15 or 20 times, and each time I'm like crying because it's just so powerful. Like I know what she's feeling and I understand it because I've been there. It's not just the physical journey, but also the mental journey as well. And, congrats to you, Mercedes. Like you're going to just keep doing big things, and just, showing up for yourself is so important. And so it's really touching.
Yeah. So I just want to urge you guys to watch the Mercedes video again, watch that transformation story, because it is incredible. And what I noticed is that when she talks about consistency, there's a lot of emotion that comes over her as soon as she says the word consistency, which means that psychologically that was a hurdle. That was a promise that she kept making to herself, that she kept breaking over and over and over. And listen, we need help to break promises, like to keep the promises. Like we need help to keep the promises that we make to ourselves. And I think it's twofold, right? It's like an internal, powerful motivation personally. And we'll talk about that later and how to get there. And then secondarily, it's the accountability that you surround yourself with in the community, like you talked about, Morgan. And it starts with our franchise partners, Thomas and JoJo at Clarksville, and just creating that environment in which people can feel vulnerable enough to step into into camp every day and not only move their body, but because they're moving your body, also move their emotions as well. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I can just imagine, like she was saying, she's able to jump rope now. Like when she probably jump rope for the first time, the community probably rallied around her and like just really celebrated her. Like I can feel that, like, and I'm excited for her, like for her just continue to do big things and hard things.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we are going to go to a member question. We have a member question that just came in. All right. Amy from Mallard Creek, what advice and tips do you have for people struggling to do push-ups on their toes? This is a good one. Morgan?
This is a good one. And, I think as a trainer, this is very common for people, women, to come in and not be able to do that, not yet develop that strength. And a lot of it, you guys, actually has to do with our core. So if you've had babies and you haven't fully recovered from what that did to your core and your midsection, make sure that you're focusing on that as well as that upper body strength. But For me, it's all about progression. So even if you can't do 10 on your toes, you always want to try and start with being on your toes and then let your body fail out before you go to your knees. So like for an example, if the trainer asks you to do 30 seconds of push-ups, like do your best to do as many as you can with good form on your toes first, and then you move down to your knees. And then over time, you're trying to do more and more on your toes. So just because you can't do it for 30 seconds doesn't mean you should not try it all. So it's all about progression. I know, Devin, you're probably going to give even more details of what things you can do outside of push-ups to help you. But I just think it starts with a mindset shift of just because you can't do something doesn't mean you can, like, you don't do it at all, and I think some of us feel that way about even double unders or pull-ups or push-ups. Those are those common exercises that I see as a challenge for somebody. So, but doing one is better than doing zero.
So what people might not know is that all three of us are trainers.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have this thing at Burn where part of the coming of age is to make sure that you get on that mic and rip a few camps. LP, you're no stranger to that.
Wow.
Nope, I am not. So I actually started in Child Watch.
Yep.
And then I remember somebody saying, "Oh, you could become a trainer." And I was like, haha, you're really funny. I'm not going to do that. That seems very intimidating. And then less than 6 months later, I was on the mic at Lake Norman and training camps. But my biggest advice and what I saw a lot with my members when they were struggling with push-ups on their toes is like, go down really slow. So like do an eccentric, slow, go down and then come up on your knees. So that way you're still building up that muscle and you're still being able, and that helped a ton of people go from doing push-ups on their knees to being able to do push-ups on their toes. And then the other exercises that like working those smaller muscles like chest press and things like that, just making sure you're continuing to progress in those weights so that you're building those muscles up. Yeah.
One of the biggest problems that I see with members that aren't performing push-ups correctly is that their scap is their shoulders are up in their ears like this. And what they do is then they take their elbows out nice and wide. And so you have like this wing type of kind of you're closing off your collarbone. You can't really get all the way down. Your elbows are way too wide. What you want to do is put your body into like the shape of an arrow, right? That means just elbows are back 45 degrees. And then you go down eccentrically like LP was saying. And then you can even take your hands off the floor at the bottom of the motion. And what that does is called a hand release push-up. It forces you to get full range of motion and get your chest all the way to the ground. So that's very important, right? Because we need to work strength through the full range of motion. And so often, and I see it wrong all the time. It's wrong more often than it's right when I watch people doing push-ups online. That's what I do all day, just watch people do push-ups online. So I see a lot of it. And most of us are not taking our chest all the way to the deck. And so it's putting your body into an arrow. It's that hand release at the bottom. It's the eccentric motion. And then one other tip that I like is to draw a straight line from your fingertip to fingertip, index finger to index finger, and actually just touch your chin on the other side of the floor over that line. And what tends to happen is everything else will kind of flow through and all the form cues will just kind of fall into order once you've had that mentality. So that's my best advice there. And we do need to do push-ups correctly though, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we have to.
And just to share with everybody, I still have to go to my knees sometimes, when I'm failing out and when it's a heavy arm day or upper body day, I'm not afraid to go to my knees either because I want to make sure I'm using good form, but I always make sure that I'm failing out first.
Yes. Failure. So failure, let's talk about that real quick for a moment. Failure is something that we chase in the gym, but then it's not something that we are used to or conditioned to chase outside of the gym. It's like we don't like to fail outside of the gym, but we like to fail inside of the gym. Why do you think that is? LP, why do you think that failure is associated to negative growth outside of the gym, but it's positive inside?
I think failure is just like, oh man, I did something bad and maybe I made like a mistake. But what I've started to, especially with my experience in Burn, is like failure is a good thing. And what can I learn from failing? What can I learn from that specific lesson? Like there may have been some mistakes along the way, but now I can use that to propel myself forward. So that failure inside the gym, which is such a good thing, now I was able to translate that good connotation in the rest of my life. And now I teach my children that too, like, hey, we want to fail so that way we can now learn from our mistakes, and so that way we can continue to get better and continue to just be good little humans. So.
Morgan, what is your take on failure?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, failure is seen as a negative thing in society. And, it usually comes from either our own ego to always want to do good and never, do anything that's a failure. But also it's other people that we're listening to, like other voices in our head that are either telling us that we're failing, whether that's something you grew up with parents, or just over time, you've had people in your life that aren't supporting you through the challenges you're going through and almost like judging you. So you're afraid of that fear of judgment of other people. So when you can surround yourself with, hey, failure is a learning lesson. Failure is a good thing. Let's get through this together. Then you can start to have that impact other areas of your life.
Yeah, for sure. And, speaking of failure, it's when you fail, you build up lactic acid in your body from micro tearing all your muscle fiber. It's like little inflammation. You build up little inflammation. And one of the best ways to reduce that inflammation is to go on a walk. And I know that this podcast is mostly about education, but I also want to have some entertainment. We're going to put some more entertainment in the podcast Run a Show. And next time you go on your recovery walk, all right, what I want you to do is try what Marilyn Smith from Canada went viral for, all right, after she dubbed her after dinner walk the fart walk. I want you to see this video if you haven't seen it. I think this is so funny.
Going for a fart walk after dinner is something that's going to help you age wonderfully. And if you follow me, you know that my husband and I go out for fart walks most nights after dinner. So about 60 minutes after we've eaten, we put on our running shoes and off we go. Now, why do we do this? Well, we eat a lot of fiber, so we have gas. Everybody does. And you fart when you walk. So that's why I named it that. But the main reason that we do the fart walks is because by walking for as little as 2 minutes, we usually walk for about 10, 15, 20, but not really quickly. It's more of a moderate walk. We are helping reduce our chances of developing type 2 diabetes.
I love how she's so serious. She brings it back to something serious.
It's helping maintain our blood sugars, keeping them from ricocheting all around. And as you age, especially after 40, you have a bigger chance of developing type 2 diabetes. So it's these little things you do on a regular basis that can have a really big impact on your long-term health. So sign yourself up for fart walks. I invented the hashtag. Yeah, so on my grave, Marilyn Smith, the fart walk inventor. Yeah, you know what? It's fun to be famous for something.
Oh, I just love it. I love it. And it's yeah, I mean, walking obviously does do those things, but the fart walk, guys, is pretty funny. LP, you ever been on a fart walk before?
I'm gonna be honest. I walk with my kids but I've never been conscious of do I fart or do I not? And so now I was talking about it with Morgan right before this, and I was like, now when I walk, I'm going to be like, am I passing gas right now? Am I farting? I don't know. So I'm definitely going to be more conscious of my gas pass whenever when I go on walks now.
Morgan, I know you're tooting on your walks.
I don't know. I might be. I saw this video a couple of months ago and I remember sharing it with some friends because I also thought it was funny, but there is some truth to what she's talking about from a health benefit. Walking after you are eating is a really great way to normalize your blood pressure or your blood sugar levels, and obviously just getting activity in is great. So yeah, now I'm like, maybe do I need a fart or am I farting? So
am I supposed to fart the whole time?
Yeah.
How many farts per stride is inappropriate for this? What's the protocol?
I feel like next time I go on a walk with you, Devin, you're just gonna be letting it rip, and you're just gonna be like, yeah, that was what she told us. So I'm
just gonna show the kids that video, and then I'm gonna make fart noises while you're walking, and they're gonna think it's hilarious.
Love it.
Yeah.
They're gonna love
it. The fact that it's funny because we're all grown children inside, and we think farting is still hilarious. My kid, they crack up anytime that happens. Farts or poop is always gonna. It's always
Always
good. It's
the
always
pit
gonna be
stop.
funny. It's always
Yeah.
gonna be funny, no matter what age you are.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that make you guys uncomfortable at all to talk about farts on the
No.
podcast?
No, I'm pretty
Okay.
open when it comes to my digestion. And obviously there's a level of TMI, but
Well, I hear you and your girlfriends at dinner talk about your digestion, and that's a whole different ball game of
no,
what goes on.
for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, at least we're talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's important to like.
Do you guys
talk
do
about
that,
it with
LP?
your
Like,
friends.
do you go out to dinner and talk about your digestion?
Absolutely.
Well, Devin, this
See, we
all the
talk
time.
about like the NBA playoffs
Yes.
or like the new rap battle
This is the difference between
or the protocol we did yesterday.
men and women, because women have more digestion problems historically than men because of
sure.
our hormones. So even when we travel, sometimes just traveling, then your body just shuts down and doesn't allow you to do it. So it's frustrating, and it's good to get in common company and be like, isn't that annoying? So, or what do you do about it? Because we all are always looking for tips to make sure we're pooping every day.
Yeah, well,
Gotta
being
poop
regular.
every day.
Well,
Being
I've been
regular.
regular since I can remember. So
I know.
okay,
I know.
we're gonna move on
All
from
right.
fart walking, and so yeah, just remember to fart while you walk. Okay, so we have another member question. This one comes from Tanya out of Asheville, North Carolina, and she asks, "What should the target heart rate be on strength days?" Ooh, okay. The target heart rate on strength days. Here's what I'm going to tell you. That the question you're asking might not be the best question to ask. It should be, how heavy can I lift within hypertrophy, which is 8 to 15 reps by most regard? How heavy can I lift from 8 to 15 reps to failure? Like to failure, not when I feel like failing, or like when I'm like tricking myself into maybe I'm starting to fail, but when my body physically is exerting force against a load and I cannot pull it up. I cannot physically lift it anymore. Gravity wins. It takes over. You're done with that set. 8 to 15 reps. You choose that weight, your heart rate might be in a different spot depending on who you are, right? Because if you're somebody that's very, very conditioned, right? You're also coming to ACON. You're also coming to Metcon. You're also coming to bodyweight conditioning. You're doing those conditioning protocols too. Your heart rate at rest is going to be lower. It's going to be harder for you to get your heart rate up during strength training. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So what we want to do then is associate. We want to associate strength with repetition and failure. And when we want to associate conditioning with like max repetition, anaerobic threshold. So hypertrophy, anaerobic threshold, strength, hypertrophy, conditioning, anaerobic threshold. And you're going to have about 75% strength and about 25% conditioning if you want that perfect balance to where you can run fast, jump high, lift weights heavy. You're all around athlete. That's what Burn Bootcamp protocols are all about. It's that in a nutshell. So great question, great notion, but I think there's a better question to ask is, how many reps should I be lifting in on strength days to gain the most muscle possible? The answer is 8 to 15 by most regard, and most people, and it's called hypertrophy. So that's my answer to your question, Tanya. LP, and then Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what the target heart rate is, but I will say, like, for me personally, I shoot for the same thing. Like, there are some strength days where I'm probably sweating more and breathing heavier than a cardio day, because I know that I'm pushing my body and I'm making sure that I have good form and really lifting those heavy weights. So yeah, definitely making sure that I'm, feeling it by that 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th rep, and really trying to hit that failure point during strength days. So
Yeah, everything LP said. I don't have like scientifical,
That scientific
advice.
notion?
I don't use a tracker like to monitor any of that. So I also don't even look for a target in my own workouts. So it's not really something that I'm.
Yeah, you're much more, I like to show up, lift as heavy as I can, do the work. And you're not necessarily, you're leaning on the protocol and the trainers, and you're leaning on the environment and the community to really get you there.
Yeah, and I think that's what our
what most
job
people
is.
do.
That's our job at Burn Boot
Yeah.
Camp, right? Our job is really to let you come in, show up, and not worry about, the external metrics that your watch is telling you. We should be there to write the protocol to get results. Your trainer should be giving you one-on-one advice, looking at you and saying, hey, I think you can do more. And so if those things are all happening and you're receptive to that challenge, we're giving you a workout that's going to be effective if you're consistent with it and you're pushing yourself to progress in weights or reps or time under tension or whatever it is that trainer is challenging you to do. Outside of that, you shouldn't have to worry about how many calories you burned or what your heart rate was, things like that. So that's kind of how I've operated in the last 10 years. So it's not been a focus of mine.
Yeah. And I love that you just broke that down so cleanly and elegantly, because that's how most people are. Most people will feel that way. Now, I want everyone to know that eventually, and Morgan, you've been up and down this roller coaster, right? Like you've been there to where you're like tracking everything and doing the whole 9 yards, and that doesn't vibe with you, definitely. But what you are going to do at the very least, and Morgan does this too, is you're going to track these exercises that we're talking about at Burn. So you're going to show up and you're going to have a focus. You're going to have some type of challenge. It's going to be a strength or conditioning challenge. And so we did snatches this month, and my progression is very easy to track because I'm just focused on really snatches, goblet squats, burpees, and chin-ups. It's just those 4 things. And I can remember, we have the tracking and the accountability tracker and the social media tracker and all the tools for you. But at the very least, I know I snatched 85s for 12 reps. Next time I'm going to try 90s and I'm going to push myself. So trying to keep it simple. Voltaire said simple is sophisticated. So that's our game plan. Thanks, Voltaire. Okay, moving on with the segment here today. LP, as promised, I really wanted to dive into your story. You came on the podcast today, having read the book. We talked a little bit about what chapter that you read, and we're going to talk about the Burn Bootcamp book, you guys. It's so powerful to hear the 14 stories that are inside of it. So if you haven't read it yet, go read it. You're going to come back to it. It's going to mean something different to you each time you come back and you read it. And LP is the same way. LP's been living this lifestyle now for how long, LP?
Almost 7 years.
Almost 7 years. And so, I just wanted to give her the opportunity to be on the podcast today and to share her story full out, not setting any time limit on you. Just tell us everything that you'd like to about your journey, about, the lowest of the lows and the highest of the highs, where you've gone, where you're at, and where you're going.
Yeah. So when I was first reading the book, and especially, chapter 5, it starts off with a story about abuse. And I am, and unfortunately, no stranger to abuse. I experienced it during childhood and then was in abusive marriage for almost 7 years. So when I found Burn Bootcamp, I was coming out of the tail end of an abusive marriage. So really trying to decide, am I going to continue to be in this marriage that wasn't healthy, it was toxic, or am I going to, get a divorce and be a single mom of 2 very young kids that at that time they were 3 and 18 months. And it was scary. I remember not telling anybody for a very long time of the things that I was going through and the things that I was dealing with, because I felt a lot of shame. And I just felt like, I always told myself that I would never be a person that, if that would get tossed around or get hit or go through emotional, physical, and mental and sexual abuse. And I unfortunately was for a very long time. But I remember the first people that I told were, people at Burn, and then also people within church groups, and they really just surrounded me. And the way that I came into Burn was through Child Watch, like being able to bring my kids and also have a job that I was able to have them there. And it was in the darkest times of my life that I found Burn. And I'm not exaggerating or, sugarcoating this. Burn saved me. Not only the community saved me and the connection, but really being able to model a healthy lifestyle for my kids, and just being able to start my healing journey. Took me 34 years, but it's been such a blessing. Just the people that have come alongside me and the people who not only love me, but love my kids and will do anything for me and my kids. Like I just can't say enough about it.
So I'd love to, if you don't mind, just dive into that a little bit deeper. Can you take me into the moment where you had like one of your lowest lows? Tell me the story of what happened and how did you react to that in the moment? And, kind of just paint the picture of where you were at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So trigger warning for anybody who is dealing with any type of domestic violence issues. I want to make sure that you understand that this is, my story. When we first got married, he was a great guy. He on paper was excellent, took care of me. He had 2 kids from a previous marriage. And, I was like, oh man, I've found the person that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. And it was probably about 6 months to a year in where I was like, oh no, this is not going well, just based off of the characteristics that he would show me. Now, he hadn't put his hands on me or anything of that nature. It took about 2 years for him to do that. But I kept blaming myself for a very long time, saying that like, it's my fault, that, I'm do things to get on his nerves, or I do things to, have his anger rise. And so that's when he would hit me, or that's when he would yell at me or do all these things. And, it got to a point in my marriage, especially when I had my kids, where it's like, this isn't healthy. And, there were several points with inside that last like year right before we got divorced where I thought I was going to die. And I didn't know how I was going to physically make it out of it alive, because of just the things that he was doing to me and the things that he was, doing inside the household. He isolated me from pretty much everybody that I came into contact with. So like connection for me still is very hard, to be able to trust people and to be able to, deepen that relationship, because for a long time, like he just kept telling me, you're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to be anything without me. And hearing that over and over and over for months and months and months, you start to believe it. And so then it's like, how am I going to escape this? How am I going to get out of this? Because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm not making any money. I depend on him solely for everything. And so I really had to take a leap of faith to be able to say like, hey, I need to leave this. And it really took my oldest daughter. There was this one time where he didn't want us to leave. We escaped the house, for lack of a better word. And he came sprinting down the stairs and she started screaming and crying. And she was like, I'm scared of daddy. And after that, I was like, I can't continue to be in this relationship for my kids when my kids are scared. And then they're creating this fear and they're young and that stays with them. And so I was like, I need to be able to show up for not only myself, but also for them, and be able to show them like, hey, this is what a healthy relationship looks like. And this is not it.
So it really took you seeing the look and the reaction from your daughter, your oldest daughter, and her saying how scared she was and relaying that to you before you really realized how quickly that you needed to leave this situation.
Yep. And it was probably about after that happened, like 4 months after, I started like, okay, getting all of my affairs in order. And once again, I had to do all of this in secret, because if he found out anything, he said that he was going to kill me. So it's like, I had to be able to, set money aside, the little money that I had, let my family members know, like, this is the first time that I told them everything. Let a couple of friends and people that I knew and I trusted know what was going on, so that way they could help me. And that way they could the people afterwards, they furnished my entire apartment afterwards. They, bought me groceries. They took my kids to school when I couldn't and I had to work. So just being able to trust a couple of people, that really took me to the next level.
So yeah, you're not used to being able to trust anybody, but you somehow trust these two people, and they are the ones that really helped you and that you could lean on as you're getting out of that.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you trust people when inherently you say that you're not trusting? How do you put your faith into that? Was it the pain that you were experiencing, or the pain that your daughter was going through? What was the catalyst?
Yeah, it was definitely the pain that I was experiencing, and I just know that they deserved better, and I wanted to be better for them. And these people didn't know him, because I think a lot of people knew him, and they were like, "Oh, he's so nice, and he's so great, and he takes care of you." And I'm like, "You're not seeing what's happening behind closed doors. Like, you're not seeing the bruises that I have to hide, or the things that I have to hide in order to be able to show up and mask all of these things." And they had been through similar situations. And so they really took me in, and they were like, "I'm going to make sure that the person that I needed when I was going through that situation, I'm going to be that person for you." So it took a long time. I still, like I said, struggle with trusting people and struggle with asking for help. But every single time that I have been vulnerable and I have been able to do that, it's come back to me tenfold. And then being able to do that for other people is super important.
Yeah. People don't know this, but we know each other's story, and we relate on a very deep level because I grew up watching my mom and dad do very, very similar things. And there was always substances involved. Always. They were so nice and such sweet people. Right. And so loving and like great human beings off the sauce. But as soon as the bottle turned upside down and the drugs started rolling, it just became an entirely different world where there's substances involved in this. Was that this type of scenario that so often happens with those who experience domestic violence, alcohol, drug abuse, these types of things were happening as well?
Not so much drug abuse, but he did enjoy alcohol, and it definitely did get worse whenever he was drinking. And
but
once
he would
again,
do these things sober too.
Yeah, but he would do these things sober. Like, I always had to walk on eggshells. I never knew how he was going to come home, if he was going to be in a good mood, a bad mood. And, I could do absolutely nothing and get thrown into the wall. And so that was very scary for me, because I was like, I'm trying to do everything that I can in order to be perfect for you and to be a great wife and all of these things, and just wasn't good enough. So
how you feeling, Morgan? You obviously have known LP's story for a while. This is really the first time she's gone into it on the podcast.
I haven't known like the depths of it, right? And so just thank you for sharing. I know it's vulnerable to do this, and I think it makes me so sad that people don't believe women when they say this guy is doing this. And, it's, like you said, you're like, I couldn't share it with people that knew him because they wouldn't believe you, right? Yeah. Because, oh no, I see him, I know him. But I think that is a lot of the times where women feel trapped because they don't have that community to rely on, like you did, the church group or some friends that didn't know him. And, it makes me angry and it makes me sad for women that don't have that support system to say, this happened to me. And like, after the first time, like, you should believe me. I shouldn't have to show you the bruises. I shouldn't have to show you, the videos. Like, just believe me and believe what women are going through, and then let's help them get out of it. So I'm glad to see you on the other side here. I know you've gone through a lot of work, and, I know you attribute a lot of it to Burn Boot Camp and just continuing to find that community around you that are going to believe in you and support you and get you out of that, and still support you through, what you're going through now as a single mom, because that's not easy either. That's the only experience I have to relate in this story, is being raised by a single mom for only about 5 years. And then she did find somebody to help her. But I know the challenges that she went through, and the sacrifices that she had to make. It was a different situation. Of course, my father passed away suddenly, but the extra hours that you put into work, I see the work that you're doing, LP. And I know you're doing this for yourself first, but for your children. And so just kudos to you for seeing that when you needed to see it, and making a decision and moving forward. And I want to know what I can do more to help women that are going through this. I think it's important for us to share some resources on the podcast here in the show notes where women can go to start to get some help to get out of situations like this, because not everybody does have that community that we're talking about right here. Not everybody has, the church group or the Burn Boot Camp group. And we got to connect them with more women and people that like you experienced. So.
Well, I want to connect this back to the book, because you read Kifa's story from Costa Mesa, California, and it's similar. And so when we think about psychologically how to break this down and kind of get out of the emotional lows and get back into an emotional high, especially when it comes to physical abuse, the connection strategy that we write about in the book is so important, because if there's two levels of connection that we could have as a human being. There's one with yourself, which is what we call core identity. And then there's one with kind of the ideal of the world's version of you, which is called surface identity. And if we don't connect with ourselves first, we'll never be able to connect and to navigate the rest of the world appropriately. And oftentimes in an abusive relationship, what you are is somebody else's idea of who you should be, and you're not connected to yourself first. So the work here, and the work that Morgan said she's watched LP do, this work is the connection with herself. This is her finding out the answer to the question, who am I really? And connecting with that core version of herself, that version of yourself that when you identify it, you get tingles because you're like, yup, that's it. That's who I am. That's what I'm supposed to be. And it is divinely connected and congruent with where you're supposed to go and who you're supposed to be. And so many of us, even if it's not an abusive relationship or something that's extra traumatic or the emotional lows of all lows, even if it's like an emotional low, but you're kind of just going through life, nothing really is happening that's terrible or existential, but your life isn't that great, you're not too happy with the way it's turning out. Well, you might just have what I call the Bob the Banker syndrome, where you go around every single day introducing yourself to people as like Bob the Banker, who is, serving this and serving that, and, just this surface level shell version of yourself, when there's really nothing, no connection inside. You're not Bob the Banker. You're not just defined by your occupation. You're not defined by your name even. You are much more than that. You're a father. You're a lover. You're a friend, a business owner. You're a volunteer, right? You're allowed to have these multiple hats that you wear, and connecting with yourself at a core level is the key to, I think, unlock the next level wherever you're at. You always have to reconnect with yourself. And when you reconnect with yourself and your core identity and you're aware, self-awareness becomes a lot easier, because now you're talking to your core identity. It's your ego talking to your identity. And now self-awareness becomes a lot easier, because you know how to navigate yes and no to the things that come to you in life. Not somebody else's version, but your own. So when we talk about connect, Morgan, in the book, and you talk about core versus shell, like what comes to your mind? What is your story? When did you, even if it's back in the day or 2 years ago, or when was the moment where you were like, no, I'm not going to be defined by like this idea of the world and what it wants me to be. I'm actually going to flip the script, take responsibility for my own life, identify what I truly intrinsically desire, and I'm going to connect with that and use that as my navigation. When was that for you?
I think, it goes back to the story I've told several times of, Morgan's quit Kellogg's, needed a new identity, was a personal trainer, thought I needed to show up one way, and went down that pathway. So I've shared the story before on the podcast, but when I think about what was that core memory, it's me sitting at the Cornelius gym. Remember, in between the bathrooms, there was that mirror there, yes. LP. And I remember it was like a Sunday, and I had just ran probably 8 miles and did some sort of workout myself in the gym, and then decided to take my shirt off and my sports bra and do this selfie picture. And I can remember the zoom in, right, into your iPhone, and starting to hate things about your body. And I think that was, for me, that's the moment, because I actually was surrounded by a really great community. I was already a trainer at Burn Boot Camp. I had already established, a Burn Boot Camp Cornelius community that was looking at me to be a leader and to show up and show them what health could look like. And that was the moment for me where I was like, no, this is not the core identity of who I'm going to be. I'm not going to be defined by how I look on the outside. And that has shaped me as a CEO, as a mother, as a friend, as a podcast host. That is kind of the core of who I am. Is I'm not going to be defined by what people think I should look like. It's about what's in the inside, and it's about how I celebrate the different phases of life and chapters of life. And so I'm thankful that I had that community that kind of put the pressure on me to show up real and raw and authentic, even though it was scary sometimes, And so I remember sharing with Instagram my postpartum journey, especially through, I think, Ryan, mostly even, of just like raw pictures of my stomach. And, I don't bounce back by the time you walk out of the hospital, like some people do. And I just think showing that gave other people permission to say, oh gosh, like this is refreshing, because I don't look like that over there. I look a little bit more like her. And that's what I can relate to.
Yeah, that makes you very relatable, especially as a CEO of a company. You are the consumer, the customer, the member. You are that, so you get to feel every single day what it's like and how burn gets to impact you, which I think is your number one. You have many, many superpowers, but your number one superpower is you found your core identity, and then you built an entire company around the core identity, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And so LP, we talk about the work that you're doing with your core identity. And to me, the work is really 3 questions. It's like, who are you? Number 1. Who do you want to be? Number 2. And what's stopping you from getting there? So why don't you answer those questions?
Oh gosh.
Who number 1, who are you? Who do you want to be, and what's stopping you?
I'm going to be honest. Like, I think I'm still trying to find who I am as a person. When you're told over and over who you are from other people, it's very easy to be able to believe those things. And so I'm still trying to figure out who I am and, being able to do that. And it's literally a moment by moment process. Like, there will be times where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm a failure. And, I'm doing a bad job as a mom and this and that. And I literally have to rewire my brain and say, no, you're not. These are the facts. But this is the things that you've been through that make you think those things. So
it's really good self-awareness.
It's hard, and trying to teach it to my kids as well. It's very difficult. It's very challenging. And then who I want to be, once again, I wasn't allowed to dream for a very long time. And so I'm still like being able to work through therapy, like who I am. And then what do I want to be, and how can I see that dream? Because for a long time, it was just like, here's the present, and here how chaotic it is.
Yeah. You were living in the moment.
Yeah.
Day by day.
And I was like, am I going to survive this moment? Right. So, I'm still trying to be able to, so that didn't really answer your question, but,
I think that's really fair. And I actually talked about that a little bit when we did the book, me, Ansley, and DJ, we did the book club. And we all kind of admitted that sometimes we go through seasons of life where we're just surviving. Even, if you have small kids or you're growing a business, at the end of the day, you are still setting forth that vision and that North Star, but it doesn't feel that way always. It just feels like I'm just getting day by day by day. And I think we all kind of took a moment to recognize, like, man, I probably do need to sit down and think about who I want to be. What is my vision? What is my North Star? So we aren't just surviving, because life will continue to go on, and we do need to be in control, right? We do need to say, what does that need to look like for me? What is the perfect day? And some of us are living it, and that's an exciting thing, maybe not every single day, but I just want to acknowledge that it's not as easy as the book always, or it sounds that it is. And but it's intentional time that you need to take with yourself. And if you're not, then a year will go by, 2 years will go by. And before you know it, like life is just happening and you can find yourself in a very unhappy moment. So,
Yeah. And I have an experience too, LP, where I, have to constantly be rewiring my mind and because you're so foundationally built into it, right? It's like chaos was just normalized for me. So, there's some benefits to that, but also there's some still very dark memories and dreams that come from being in those situations, which I'm sure that you experience as well, because it's built into your brain. So the way that your neurons wire together, they're going to fire that way. So if you've been learned over time to think a certain way, that pattern, it's going to get thicker and thicker and thicker and denser and denser and denser. And you've got to, in order to rewire your brain and get neurons to fire in a different way, which is called neuroplasticity, then you've got to get to the gamma state of brainwave. So this is very important. And this is why people do meditation, because meditation will get you into the gamma brainwave in which you're most plastic, and you're going to be able to reconnect and refire neurons together. And so that's why I've practiced meditation for nearly, 10 years. It's gone exponentially more and more and more and more and more and more as I get older. It was maybe once every few weeks in my late 20s, and now it's almost every day. And what I find personally in my own experience of it is when I can meditate, what happens if I'm not asking for anything and I'm just saying, like, show me, deliver to me, like removing the ego, like deliver to me what I need to know in this moment. I'm getting into gamma waves by meditating. And then I'm opening up my brain to just let consciousness itself give me direction. And so that there's no preconceived notion to who I should be or who I shouldn't be. And you try to set all that down, you set all that aside and just ask, what do I need to know that I don't know? And when you do that in gamma wave state, you're going to have a higher propensity or likelihood to then fire and wire neurons together in a new way. And so I'm learning more about this as I'm getting older too, and kind of choppy there. I'm going to get better at explaining that, but that is definitely what's happening in my own experience. And it's weird because you can like experience it as like practically, but then there's science behind it. And once you start to learn it, I'm not an expert, but once you start to learn a little bit about it, it's like, oh, now I'm educated and I know what's happening. So I know I'm not just like doing meditation because it's like woohoo, like look at me, cross my legs and, and do ohms. No, you make a noise because that's going to get you deeper into your central nervous system. You're going to vibrate your pineal gland. When you vibrate your pineal gland, you're going to, have, just a deeper experience and a higher ability to get in gamma waves. So I'm going to stop rambling, but this is the work, people. And it goes really deep. And so it starts with the questions, who are you? Who do you want to be? And what's stopping you? And there's no one way to get there, but we're so proud of you, LP, and just for being here. Like Morgan said, sharing this stuff, it's pretty heavy. Any last words before, we talk a little bit about the book and for maybe anybody out there who is going through what you have experienced before, if you could give them like some call to action in step 1, step 2, step 3, what would be your playbook, to get out of an abusive relationship?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, you're not alone, right? People have experienced this. I've experienced it, unfortunately. And I know that it's hard, and I know that you're probably telling yourself like, hey, it's my fault. It's not. It's not your fault. And if you don't have anybody to reach out to me. Reach out to somebody that you love and you trust, because that was really the turning point for me. And still, I have amazing friends who surround me now, where like, if I'm having a bad day or if I'm really triggered by a certain thing, I can trust them and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and they're able to love on me and support me and support my kids. So I think the biggest thing is like, just make sure that you have somebody. Just make sure, because I know how isolating it can feel, and I know how isolating that journey can be. But you need people, and you need to be able to find that community. So if you don't have one, find one. If you don't know who you can reach out to, you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to help. So.
Well, thank you again, LP, for sharing your story. And as you mentioned, the book, we talked about it here. If you guys have not read the book, it is available on Amazon. It's that strategy, which is Connect, talking about community, as well as 4 other strategies to strengthen your inner and outer fitness. So we'll make sure that the link to the book is directly in the show notes, but we would love for you to buy a copy and then leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the book. This gives a lot of practical tips. We've got recipes in there, we've got workouts in there, and we've got some really, really great member stories. One, obviously, that we mentioned today about how these strategies have impacted their life. So go pick up your copy today.
Okay, everyone. Well, listen. By the way, I misspoke. It's theta, not gamma. Theta, not gamma. Gamma is when you're hyperactive. Theta is when you're hyper not active. Okay, just so we know. Okay, I'll self-correct. I'm always open to being wrong.
Always fact-checking yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure because I was just reading about this like last week and I didn't have it quite all the way down yet. Okay, good. All right, everybody. Well, listen, thank you for being here. Go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to get those reviews up over there. Spotify and YouTube, you can watch this podcast. We have videos on every single one. Podcast at burnbootcamp.com. If you'd like to be on the podcast, submitting a video, sharing your story, letting Burn Nation know that you came to play, all right, and that you have sought a transformation, you are there, you have another one in sight, and you want people to know about it, you want to hang out with us on the podcast, submit your story, podcast at burnbootcamp.com, and we will be right there to communicate with you directly, okay? All right, everybody, we're going to end it like we always do. We got 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.